The Houston Rockets had arguably the best offseason out of anybody in the NBA this year, and this is a team that decided to push all their chips to the middle of the table and go all in with this roster after they not only re-signed and retooled this roster while still keeping their core pieces intact. They made the biggest splash of this year's offseason, acquiring Kevin Durant from the Phoenix Suns in exchange for guys like Jalen Green, Dillon Brooks, the number 10 overall pick in this year's draft, as well as 5 second-round picks, and I applaud the Houston Rockets for this move. But what is baffling to me is the fact that the NBA discourse on Twitter, YouTube, all over social media is still the same. The Houston Rockets are overrated. This Kevin Durant trade is a lose-lose trade for both teams, and that Kevin Durant is not enough for the Houston Rockets. And you know what I say? Those people don't know what they're talking about. People that think that the Houston Rockets or Kevin Durant are overrated, I'm sorry, y'all don't know ball. And look, at the end of the day, nobody has seen the way that this roster is going to now perform with Kevin Durant. But I think that there are enough pieces, both with Kevin Durant and surrounding Kevin Durant, that suggest to me that this team is going to be a top 3-4 team in the Western Conference. They have every opportunity to go out there and win the Western Conference. And I am a firm believer in this Rockets team, and I don't think that they're overrated. I am here to come to the defense of this Rockets team. Now, let me say first and foremost, I'm wearing all my Jaguars stuff because Jaguars football is back today, and I'm sure a ton of Rockets fans who are watching this video are actually Texans fans. So first of all, I'm sorry if you're a Texans fan. I know Jags fans like myself don't have much room to talk, but I will say we're going to win the AFC South this year. But let's put our disagreements to the side for a moment, and let me talk about 3 reasons why I believe in this Houston Rockets team and why I'm not going to address the people that I think are saying that this team is overrated. 1, you look at the depth chart and the offseason acquisitions that this Houston Rockets team had. Secondly, it's their head coach in Ime Udoka. And third, it is simply Kevin bleepin' Durant. Kevin Durant is somebody that I will address later on in the video. Kevin Durant is someone that I have came to the defense of many times, and I'm going to continue to do it here again today because Kevin Durant is a top 15 to 20 player of all time. He's the greatest offensive scoring threat I've ever witnessed in my lifetime at 24 years of age, and I simply believe in this Houston Rockets team. Now, before I go ahead and I start talking about some of the offseason acquisitions and moves that the Rockets made, I do apologize if you guys can hear outside the people mowing, so I do apologize for that. But let's go ahead and talk about some of the moves that the Rockets organization made this offseason. When you talk about the departures, you look at guys like Dillon Brooks and Jalen Green, somebody who I've mentioned was a part of that 7-team trade that sent those guys to Phoenix in exchange for Kevin Durant. And probably the biggest one was Cam Whitmore leaving the Houston Rockets for the Washington Wizards in exchange for those second-round picks. And I know that Rockets fans were extremely upset about letting go of Cam Whitmore at just 21 years of age. He still has a ton of promise. Obviously, he's an athletic freak, and he can be a very solid scoring punch at the next level. But where I would tell Rockets fans and other fans of the NBA is that, hey, look, Cam Whitmore, although he is a great young promising player, you guys should feel happy for him that he's now getting an opportunity with a young developing Wizards team to have an opportunity to showcase his talents and to actually learn, grow, and develop. And it's nothing against what he could or couldn't do in Houston. He just simply would not have had the opportunities with their depth chart, and they are in a win now mode. I know that Rockets fans wanted to look at the future with Cam Whitmore, but if anything, I think you guys should be happy for him, and I'm happy that Cam Whitmore now gets an opportunity in Washington to really grow and develop into the player that we all think that he can be. Just want to take a moment to say, if you are appreciating this type of work and coverage from me, the best and easiest way to support me is by liking, commenting, and subscribing down below. It's free and it helps me and the channel out tremendously. My goal is to get this channel up to 10,000 subscribers by the end of the calendar year, and if you guys want more exclusive content from me outside of just here on YouTube, you guys can go ahead and follow me on my socials. The links to all of them will be in the description down below. But thank you guys again, and let's go ahead and get back to today's video. When you talk about the additions to this roster, we talked about Kevin Durant coming over in that 7-team deal. You also talk about the return of center Clint Capella, who agreed to a 3-year deal. Dorian Finney-Smith agreed to a 4-year deal after opting out of his contract with the Los Angeles Lakers. Josh Okogie and J.D. Davidson, the former G League MVP, both agreed to 1-year deals. And one thing that I'll say is, for not necessarily Josh Okogie, but let me talk about J.D. Davidson here for a second. I got to cover the NBA NBA G League for the entirety of last season with the Osceola Magic, for you guys that don't know me. And JD Davidson is a phenomenal player. How much of an opportunity he really gets in Houston, nobody knows, but I'm glad that he actually is getting an opportunity now, because it obviously didn't work out with the main Celtics to have him back, or the Boston Celtics. So now he really has another opportunity to showcase his talents. And I'm somebody that's really high on JD Davidson. I covered the G League and I was honestly amazed at what he did last year. I'm really wishing him the best. Now, talking about some of the players that the Rockets re-signed this offseason, you have to first of all talk about center and fan favorite Steven Adams, who agreed to a 3-year extension. Aaron Holiday agreed to a new deal. Jeff Green agreed to a new deal. Jabari Smith Jr. agreed to a 5-year rookie max extension, or maybe it wasn't a max extension, I can't remember, but it was a 5-year deal. You had Jayshawn Tate agree to a new deal, as well as Fred VanVleet, former champion Fred VanVleet, agreed to a new 2-year deal. I applauded the Rockets for the moves that they made this offseason. They decided to push their chips all the way in, and they continue to fortify the defensive side of the ball around Kevin Durant, the most important thing that you could have done for KD at this point in time in his career. So now that I've talked about some of the offseason acquisitions and I've kind of talked about this depth chart a little bit, let me go ahead and talk about Ime Udoka, probably the biggest reason why I actually believe in this Rockets team so much. You can say that Ime Udoka, after just 3 seasons of being a head coach, it was 2021-22 when he's with the Celtics, and then now the last 2 seasons with the Rockets, he's always coached 500 or better. We all know that Ime Udoka in his first season with the Boston Celtics took him all the way to the conference finals, and then you look at last year, they were 41-41 in this first year with the Houston Rockets, just missed out on the play-in tournament. They were the 11th seed, and then this past season, they were a 52-win team, I believe, off the top of my head, and correct me if I'm wrong. Nonetheless, whatever they were the number 2 seed in the Western Conference. How many Coach of the Month awards does Ime Udoka need to win to prove to you guys that he is an elite coach? How many times does he have to have a track record of showing that he gets the best out of his players and he puts a great product out there on the floor? He has shown that time and time again through his time with Boston, even though it was one lone season, and now back-to-back seasons with the Houston Rockets. To say with that young developing team where Jalen Green had the best season of his career, that he was able to get that team all the way to a number 2 seed in that Western Conference, that says a ton about Ime Udoka, and he is a terrific coach. And the reason why I harp on Ime Udoka being such a great coach is because this isn't Kevin Durant playing with Steve Nash, who I mean no disrespect to. This isn't Kevin Durant playing with Frank Vogel or Mike Budenholzer, 2 coaches that I think are extremely overrated. This is him with a proven defensive-minded coach in Ime Udoka, who is absolutely going to get the best out of his players, a proven coach, and this is somebody that I think is a match made in heaven for KD at this point in his time in his career and with the roster construction around him. Now kind of getting into the back half of this video, before I really start talking about Kevin Durant, let me just briefly talk about the roster construction because I know I've talked about it. I think that they did a terrific job of building and rounding out this roster around KD and his talents. KD, we all know, is still going to be a 25 to 28 point per game scorer on an efficient 50-40 type of 90 scoring. That is a given. He's obviously the greatest offensive talent this game has ever seen, in my humble opinion. But then you talk about defensively, the guys around him, Amen Thompson, Tari Eason, even Jabari Smith on the wing. You have guys that can still space the floor with Fred VanVleet, with Alperen Sengun, who can still come out to the mid-range and create other opportunities as a passing big man and can score down low. You have shooters like Reed Shepard. You have a ton of great players. You have depth on this roster from top to bottom, and you did a great job of solidifying the inside with Steven Adams, with Alperen Sengun, and Clint Capella. They've done a terrific job of rounding out this roster, and I cannot say that enough times without making it abundantly clear. They've done a great job. Now really getting into the back half portion of this video where I'm going to talk about Kevin Durant and really come to his defense. I hate the discourse around Kevin Durant, and I'm so glad that KD is one of those guys that gets on Twitter and chirps back at fans, because you could say he's wasting his time, but I think that he's defending himself, and he has every right to defend himself. At this point in his career, the discourse around KD is that he's overrated, he can't lead a team, he can't be the number 1 option, and I do think it is kind of funny that KD is going to be there on opening night in Oklahoma City for the ring ceremony in the franchise that he built up. I think that is ironic, but I hate that because KD has proven over the entirety and course of his career that he is absolutely, undoubtedly one of the best players in the game. In post Golden State, the discourse around him just got absolutely terrible, and that's what I'm going to defend here today in support of him in Houston. People like to point to the fact that he's now been with 2 organizations post Golden State. He's now on his 3rd organization on his time with the Brooklyn Nets and the Phoenix Suns, and say, hey, look, 2 out of those 4 postseasons, he was swept in the first round. He was swept by the Boston Celtics, and he was also swept by the Minnesota Timberwolves. I believe it was in the 2024 postseason. If you go back to the 2021 playoffs, he beat the Boston Celtics, but then he ended up losing to the Milwaukee Bucks in a Game 7 where he was a toenail away, where they could have potentially gone on to win the finals and played the Atlanta Hawks in the Eastern Conference Finals. But guess what? That Milwaukee Bucks team went on to win the finals. That was a great team and they deserved it, but he was a toenail away. I can already hear the criticism about, well, KD didn't play great in overtime in that Game 7 against the Bucks. Sure, fine, I'll give you that. But they're never in that game without KD, and you have to also take into factor the injuries to guys like Kyrie Irving and James Harden. You fast forward to 2022, and yes, they were swept by the Boston Celtics. He had probably his worst efficiency in terms of his shooting in that postseason when they got swept by that Celtics team that went to the finals but ended up losing to the Golden State Warriors. In the 2023 playoffs, they ended up beating the Clippers in the first round and ended up losing to the Nuggets in the second round of the conference semifinals. This is now when he was with the Phoenix Suns, and that Nuggets team, shocker, went on to win the NBA championship. And then this past season with the Phoenix Suns, they obviously got swept by the Minnesota Timberwolves, a team that had prior been to the Western Conference Finals, a team that had actually ended the season on a very hot note, and Rudy Gobert was an integral part of the success of defeating that Phoenix Suns team with his defense on Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. I don't think Gobert got enough credit for the way he performed in that series. So all in all, while there is a ton of criticism surrounding the Houston Rockets, saying how they're overrated, and I completely disagree, I think I've came to the defense of the Houston Rockets. They are absolutely going to be a top 3, top 4 team in the Western Conference this year. And although I do have the Minnesota Timberwolves winning the finals this year, and they are my favorite to come out of the Western Conference, don't be surprised if this Houston Rockets team is going to be neck and neck with the Timberwolves, with teams like the Clippers or the Lakers or anybody else that you want to throw in the top of the Western Conference, like the Oklahoma City Thunder. Houston has become underrated at this point. They're getting too much disrespect. Kevin Durant at this point in his career has become underrated because of the nasty discourse surrounding him. I am a huge supporter of Kevin Durant. I'm excited to see the way that this Houston Rockets team is going to come together, and they are absolutely going to be one of the title favorites to come out of the Western Conference this year. I cannot stand the narrative that KD and this Rockets team is overrated. It's ridiculous. But Rockets fans and NBA fans, please let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. What do you guys make about the discourse surrounding the Rockets being overrated, and what do you just take about my analysis of the way that I view this Houston Rockets team? I want to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. But once again, thank you guys for watching today's video and all of your guys' continuous support. It doesn't go unnoticed. And as always, I'll catch y'all on the next one.